Is the Great Duke Caboom an Evel Knievel knockoff? That's what we'll be discussing today, but before we do, don't forget to subscribe to the Tech Talk Toys YouTube channel, where you can find videos on pop culture, collectibles, Disney, Toy Story, and whatever else. So here we go. Last fall, it was announced that a lawsuit had been filed against Disney for copyright and trademark infringement based on their use of the character of Duke Caboom from the blockbuster film Toy Story 4. The plaintiffs were none other than K&K Promotions, the company that controls the rights to one Robert Craig Knievel, aka the late stuntman that we know as Evel Knievel. Now, for those of you who don't know, Evel Knievel first hit the national spotlight in the late 1960s, thanks in part to a spectacular series of death-defying motorcycle jumps, many of which left him with some devastating injuries. But if you were a child of the 1970s, you'll likely remember Evel in this form: the toy stunt cycle released by Ideal Toys. Between 1972 and 1977, Ideal sold nearly $125 million worth of Evel Knievel merchandise. But the toy stunt cycle, which is still manufactured today by K&K Promotions, was the best-selling item in the line. The Evel Knievel stunt cycle is arguably one of the most memorable toys of the entire 1970s, which is why it's no surprise that a similar-looking toy made its way into Toy Story 4, a franchise of movies that has featured a number of other popular toys, some that were licensed and others that were parodies. For example, Mr. Spell was based on Tommy's Speak and Spell. Lotso Hug and Bear resembled the popular Care Bears of the 1980s. Combat Carl, an obvious G.I. Joe parody. And most recently, Gabby Gabby was clearly patterned after Mattel's Chatty Cathy doll. And it's the similarity between two different toys, Evel Knievel Stunt Cycle and Duke Caboom Stunt Racer, that's central to the lawsuit and the question posed in this video. So let's start by comparing the personas of the two daredevils. Evel was a patriotic showman who donned the red, white, and blue on his white jumpsuit, designed to look like an American flag. He was a flamboyant entertainer that had no fear, evidenced by 413 broken bones, and he exhibited the utmost confidence in his ability, evidenced by some of the insane stunts that he attempted. Duke Caboom, on the other hand, is a proud Canadian stuntman. He wears a red and white jumpsuit with a giant red maple leaf on the back of his cape. Like Evel, his getup is designed to look like the flag of his home country, which happens to be Canada. He also has a handlebar mustache, which was a staple of the 1970s, pretty much the height of Evel's popularity and the time when the stunt cycle was released. Now, as we look at the respective toys, the stunt cycle features a bendable white Evel figure and a red hand crank launcher, which allows children to recreate some of those crazy motorcycle jumps. The Duke Caboom toys released by Disney are similar, but with a few exceptions. Rather than a red motor and crank, Duke's toy comes with a red action launcher that you can pump to propel. While the action figure wears a white jumpsuit, it has joints, making Duke more posable so he can hold his positions better during jumps. You'll also notice that on the packaging it's referred to as the Stunt Racer or the Stunt Set, not the Stunt Cycle. So as you can see, there are some clear similarities between both respective toys, but they aren't exactly carbon copies of each other, and the same can be said about the personalities of the two stuntmen. Like we discussed, Evel was presented as a cocky, fearless daredevil who believed he could make any jump, regardless of the challenge. On the outside, the character of Duke had a similar mentality, but in reality, it's only to mask a major lack of confidence he has for himself, stemming from the trauma of his owner's disappointment, which, if you remember, stems from the action figure not being able to do what was advertised in the commercial. And that's another difference. From everything that I've read, the stunt cycle isn't regarded as a toy that was a disappointment. In fact, you can find lots of videos on YouTube of it working pretty well. And you can't say the same thing about Duke Caboom's Stunt Racer, at least not the one that Rajan opened on Christmas morning. Which brings us back to our main question: is Duke Caboom an Evel Knievel knockoff? I'm going to say no. It seems pretty obvious to me that Duke is not a knockoff, but a parody of Evel Knievel. Parody can be defined as an imitation of the style of a particular writer, artist, or genre with deliberate exaggeration for comedic effect. Evel's persona, his outfit, and of course the toy line are clearly being parodied in Toy Story 4. When I hear the words knockoff, I think more of a direct imitation without that comedy or satire element. And I'm just not seeing that with Duke. And as we discussed, the Toy Story franchise has a history of spoofing other popular toys like the Stunt Cycle. And speaking of spoofs, in the 1970s, a number of different toy companies themselves, including Kenner, tried cashing in on the popularity of Ideal Stunt Cycle by releasing a similar toy line. So you might even be able to argue that Duke Stunt Racer is more or less a parody of an entire genre of toys, in the same way that Woody is a parody of cowboy toys from an earlier generation. As far as the lawsuit, I'm certainly not a lawyer or any kind of legal expert, but considering that parody is protected by law through fair use, I wouldn't bet against Disney and their Mickey Mouse lawyers. I don't think the actual lawsuit will hold up in court, but who knows? So, my verdict is that Duke Caboom is not an Evel Knievel knockoff, but is instead a parody. That's just me though. What do you think? Is Duke Caboom an Evel Knievel knockoff? Write in the comments section below.